Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
This episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Didn't file with TurboTax last year? That's in the past. Now, Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your own taxes for free if you didn't file with them last year. File by February 18th. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. New filers and filers who didn't use TurboTax last year only must start and file your own taxes in-app by February 18th. Excludes TurboTax Live. Full terms at TurboTax.com.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Chicago. What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Hello, Governor. See, I'm in London.
Pip, pip, cheerio.
I was going to try to continue the accent through welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise Podcast, but I can't do it. If you get me drunk enough, I can do a good Irish accent, but I can't do a British accent.
Are you actually broadcasting? Are you recording from London?
Yes. So and unfortunately, no. So I signed up for the Chuggo trip to London, and as I expected, we made it to Reykjavik. And our plane ran out of gas, and we're just going to stay here. And we don't even we're just like in a hut. It's great.
Is it because Reykjavik also seems to be missing a bunch of vowels?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's extra.
Right.
There's lots of vowels.
Oh, right.
Lots of vowels in Reykjavik.
It's a perfect match.
I don't want to be mean to I'm sure that Chuggo trip is a ton of fun. Just a bunch of guys in sweatshirts and shorts, much like the three of us, but
that's what I'm wearing right now. Yep.
not a woman to be seen, and
also true.
Whether or not the tickets they have will actually get them in the game, it's got to be a coin flip. I'm sure they bought counterfeit tickets.
It's like when the Simpsons, when Homer did the trip to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And the tickets ended up being printed on, was it saltines?
Yeah. So Godspeed anybody who actually signed up for that trip. They promoted that thing forever, and we knew it was a bad sign I know how these kind of like packages work. So they worked with some travel company, and they needed to get a minimum number then to get the price that they had been promised.
Right.
So they didn't advertise the price in case they didn't hit the number. So people were making a deposit but didn't know what the total cost was going to be, which this feels like a Ponzi scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to not that long ago, and they were still clearly trying to hit their minimum.
So it's kind of funny because like that would be I would think that would turn off people from signing up for the trip, which makes them not hit the minimum.
I think it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
But they're probably over there. So
I feel like it seems like they're nice guys over there.
They are nice guys. I would not have given them any money as a deposit when I didn't know what the total was.
Yeah.
Also, I wouldn't give them money if they told me I had to go. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, I've been talking and haven't introduced either of you.
Who are you again?
That's right. Where's Dave Brown?
Yeah, right. I was going to say, none of us is Dave Brown.
It's the other baseball guys. Mike Praznowski and Oleg. Guys, how are you?
Doing well, Andy. It's been a while since we've all been together here. Missed your presences.
We got a lot to talk about. We have that. I wanted to give you guys a full week for the Jed Hoyer press conference to sink in.
Oh, I don't even know what happened.
Yeah, exactly what you would think happened.
I got about 10 minutes through that, and we knew there was nothing worth.
He bullshitted for 35 minutes, and nothing's going to happen. And that was great.
Exactly.
Thought I'd let that sink in, and then we can talk about the Bears at the end of it too. The super exciting Bears who won 2 in a row and are clearly on their way to the Super Bowl. I'm very excited.
I do have a question for you. So we've seen this thing play out twice now, where a manager has become available on the open market, and ruthlessly the Cubs front office has fired the old manager and brought in the new one. Now we've seen that now happen twice. Do you think that there's any chance of it happening with Thad Levine now being available to be the president of baseball operations, and the Ricketts can fire Hoyer and hire Thad Levine?
I said last year that there was no way they were going to fire little Rossi.
I know.
And then
there
they fired
you go.
him.
So
they made him. Remember, he had to do the press conference last year. Him and Jed did it together.
Yeah.
And then
was it like a week later?
Do you think he asked Craig, "You want to do the press conference with me?" Fuck that. Okay, I guess you're not. No. So you created this mess. You explain it. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Craig. See you in Mesa. Maybe.
I'm literally now learning who Thad Levine is now after you brought him up. I didn't even realize he was the VP of the Twins, but okay, there we go. I'm like, who the hell is this Thad Levine guy that he's bringing up?
Well, I mean,
must be. I thought it was like Bruce's nephew or something.
Sorry, I guess I nerded out there for a minute. My bad.
Oh, good. But I mean, we all know that if Jed goes, I mean, Andy has been hinting at it for a few shows now that it would be Craig Counsell. Who would be the GM? Yeah.
Kick him upstairs.
Yeah, do the old Brad Stevens. There you go. Now you're thinking outside the box. Hire Pat Murphy away from the Brewers.
Just bring Rossi back.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, everyone thought he was going to Cincinnati, and there's Cincinnati move.
Then they hired Terry Francona. Terry's like, I don't like being retired. How about I want a much worse job in Ohio. I'll take the other team. Which should be a better job because there's more talent, and you still have cheap owners. He's just not related to me.
Right.
Do you think Terry Francona has any pets, and how close is Cincinnati to Springfield?
I don't know my Ohio geography all that well.
Yeah.
I know that Cleveland's up there in the part where it rains acid, and then Cincinnati's down in the part where nobody has any teeth. That's what I know about Ohio geography.
Yeah, Cincinnati's right across the river from Louisville, right?
Kentucky. Yeah,
might as well be Kentucky. Yeah.
Yes, yep. Cincinnati, as someone called it.
Yeah, I'm holding. I don't think there's. I hold on no hope that they'll change. Leadership. I think they won 83 games again.
And apparently, if I learned nothing from your last podcast with Dave, it's that.
Yeah, I had the banner again.
I sat down. I did the math, but they were. I thought. Let's see who had to lose on the last. The Cubs, according to my math, the Cubs had to win the last game, and then somebody else had to lose. I forget who it was, and then they would they would tie for the 5th best record in the National League in the second half,
It
which
counts.
I would have given to them.
I'm
But
sure
one
they
of the
have the tiebreakers.
one of the readers actually had the proof, and he's like, "No, they did finish 5th." I'm like, well, all right. So now I can sell those T-shirts that I have. I got a whole garage full of them. Now I'm going to be rich.
Get on it before Obvious Shirts does, because they're going to want to be printing those. I will say with Jed, like, I'm sure you've hammered home this point before on previous shows or articles that you've written that, in what is going to be his last year on his contract, like, why not just go all out? Why not, like, who cares what restrictions Ricketts puts on him? Like, you're not going to have a job after next year if you don't do a good enough job regardless. So
he just go out. He just signs Juan Soto and walks into Tom's office. And, oh yeah, I gave him $400 million. Oh, you're fired. Okay, well, thanks.
Right.
And I'm tearing to me, the most infuriating thing about Jed, and he did it last year too, is he sits there and he correctly identifies their problems. It's not like he's ignorant to them, and he just won't. But he won't actually fix any of it. Last year it was, we got to hit more home. He's right. Like, obviously, it's so hard to string together hits. You got to hit home runs. We need to hit more home runs, and they hit fewer home runs than they did the year before. And then he talked about our bullpen wore out. We got to get a deeper bullpen so that we don't use the same guys over and over again. And he shows up and they have a shitty bullpen for 3 months, and it sinks their entire season. It's like, all right, so
it was quite 3 months, but yeah, I get your point.
It was April, May, and most of June.
Think?
Right, and then wasn't that from like June 25th?
Yeah, it was on. Yeah. I mean,
they had like by then they had dug a hole that they didn't have the offense to help them crawl out of it.
That's true. The
bullpen got better, and they were still losing games. They were just losing them closer because
I think more to the point is that the games they lost. I mean, it wasn't that they had a terrible bullpen in like blowout games, right? Like they had a terrible bullpen that they ended up losing games, winnable games. That was stuff like half of those turn into wins, and you're in the playoffs.
We could point to a couple examples of them having a bad bullpen in blowout games if you look back.
But who cares?
Certain April game in San Diego, but
Yeah, I don't like. It's more the ones. I mean, I don't know. The ones that hurt are the April and May games where they lost and
where they were giving up leads in the 8th and the 9th. And
exactly.
You're like, this is you getting towards the end of the game, saying, hey, they're going to win, and then they didn't.
Yeah,
like, oh, that hurts. That's gonna. You knew it at the time too. You're like, oh, that's going to leave a mark. The margin for error on this team is not going to be enough.
That's right.
That you can piss away like 6 games in 4 weeks that you should have won. Those are going to cost you, and it did. Yeah, and I'll give Patrick Mooney a lot of credit. He literally tried to he asked the same question 3 different ways and got the same answer all 3 times about, don't you think you need to get a star? Don't you feel like your roster is starving for it? And he goes into this inane thing about, well, if you look at how many guys he ticks off there, like 13 guys that were over 5 WAR, and our projections, only 3 of those guys were supposed to be over that. So what do you don't know where the stars are going to come from. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Jed. Look at the names attached to them. Most of those guys were guys you knew were going to be good. And if your projections had them less than that, your projections are probably fucked.
Right. And when you consider that Acuna was hurt all year, right, he would have easily a 5 WAR player. I mean, Strider's probably that.
They're probably like, we had Shohei down as a half a win player.
Yeah.
And he ended up being worth 14 wins.
Who knew?
Who could have seen that coming? You can't, guys. I mean, I think we all know you can't predict baseball. Am I right?
Yeah. but
you can't. We know you can't.
And it was, I thought that you guys made a great point, and it was kind of funny. I was yelling at the phone. I wasn't really yelling at the phone, but as I walked the dog, and you guys were making the point about the Cubs and what would happen if they tried the opposite of the Cubs. And then I got home just in time to pause it. Like, I think this was a couple podcasts ago. And then I paused
we identified who actually
and then it
was
came
doing
to my
that.
mind, the Yankees, and then I was going to write it to you guys. I'm like, let's, later that night I walked the dog again, and then like literally, oh yeah, it's the Yankees. I'm like,
yeah. Who builds it? And it might not work. Somehow tied with the Royals, but still, it's also a lot more fun, right?
Yeah,
like to have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge is a lot more fun.
But the Royals have Bobby Witt. It's not like the Royals are missing an MVP caliber player, an impact player. Like that's all I'm saying.
Well, but Jed would say Well, that guy, they drafted him.
Yeah.
They didn't have to, but they also gave him a fucking 13-year, $300 million contract, Jed.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a guy that you drafted, Jed, that, I mean, thankfully the Cubs didn't pay him that similar money because he's not the same player he was, but for a while he was commanding that sort of money, and, you know, you show no... The thing is, like, I guess maybe... Chris Bryant, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I guess maybe the one thing you could say about that is that, like, if they did wind up paying Chris Bryant what he was commanding at the time, that they'd be in a better position to sign a star today, that, like, more stars would want to come to the Cubs.
The whole argument about, well, see how smart they were, they didn't sign those guys and they all suck now, was if they were really smart, they would have traded all those guys before they took the dramatic drop in production.
Right.
But they didn't know. When they didn't sign them, they clearly did not foresee that Bryant's injuries were going to just ravage him to the point where he couldn't really play. And Javi, who apparently played on one hip this year now, I don't know what his excuse was last year, but if they're so fucking smart, then they shouldn't have gotten, you know, they should have moved them long before and gotten impact players back. And they didn't, because they didn't know. They got proven right in arrears.
Right.
Like, they weren't right for the right reason. They just didn't want to pay it, and now it looks like they're smart.
Wow.
They got lucky. Like, what should have happened with Chris Bryant is he should have gone to Colorado. We shouldn't have gone to Colorado, but if he'd gone to Colorado, he should be hitting like 48 home runs a year, and all the Cub fans are like, what the fuck?
100%.
They've gotten lucky that, you know, his body parts keep falling off every time he tries to play.
And the problem now is that there's nobody available. Like, there's there's no hitters who are available.
And that's why, to me, the most frustrating thing of this whole thing, you know, Cub fans watch the Phillies with envy because we see Schwarber. Yeah. And then, even though I think Nick Castellanos would drive me nuts if he was on my team. You see him do cool stuff, and the player does terrible stuff. But he also does cool stuff. And you're like, oh, we could have had that. The guy that makes me the maddest is Bryce Harper. Yes. Because he wanted to play for the Cubs. Yeah. And he's every bit a superstar. In fact, I was telling Dave on the podcast the other day, I'm like, I think he's the greatest clutch player I've ever seen. And it turns out that I'm right, because they showed the 3 highest OPSs in playoff history are Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and Bryce Harper. And I didn't see Babe or Lou, so I get to be right.
Yeah, he's so good.
He wanted to play for the Cubs. And how much would that have changed everything if they had sucked it up, brought him in, and then you played a year or two with him and those guys, and then said, all right, we can't afford all this stuff. And they kind of moved some of the other guys, but had him to continue to try to build around.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like what Harper and I'm going to throw Trey Turner in there too, because if they signed Harper that year, then they signed Turner. Yeah. And that's basically what you're paying Hap, Swanson.
Yeah.
And
right. That's the fallacy with this is, in building this team of pretty good players, it's not cheap. They went over the luxury tax somehow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But they don't get the impact. Like, you're better off to have 2 or 3 really good players, like superstars, and then have to patch it with league average guys at other spots, than to pay a bunch of guys who are just over league average a lot of money each. Is what they're doing. I mean, it's like, what the whole plan is stupid. And he's bragging about how, well, you know, the thing I'm most proud of is our organizational positioning. Your organizational positioning is you with your head up your ass. That's the position that you're in.
Yeah.
And we don't have any bad contracts. Well, you don't have a lot of
intelligent spending. Yeah.
You have really good ones. Shota, maybe. For now. He's also, I love that guy. He's 32 years old, and we just had the greatest year he's ever going to have, and it didn't matter because the rest of the team sucked.
Yep.
And you got Dansby, and that contract is the contract is bad now because you needed him to have impact his first 3 years. Just realistically, you signed a 28-year-old shortstop or whatever he was. He's 30 now. The best years he was going to have were the first 2 or 3 years of the deal, and they weren't that good. And now you got to pay him for 5 more years. He's not going to get better now.
He'll be an average ball player. Like he's got, his floor is pretty high to be an average ball player, but they need
right. And
this is a perfectly fine team if it's got Juan Soto on it, or if it's got Aaron Judge, or if it's got Bryce Harper on it. It's a perfectly fine team.
Yeah, they're one player away, but the problem is the one player is literally a superstar.
Yes. Yeah. And they're not available unless you're going to go out and sign Soto. And if they're into short-term contracts, give them 4 years and, I don't know, $320 million or something. Like, unless you're signing Juan Soto, you're not – it's just not out there. Like, what's the next best hitter who might be available is Vlad Guerrero, and you're going to have to overpay for him.
So we know Juan's not really a right fielder. He's a left fielder. He's playing right field. So that's a lot of money to pay for Ian Happ's backup. Hey, Juan, Ian says he might need a day off next week. So get ready. How about Thursday? We can get you 4 at-bats.
Right.
All right.
Oh, man.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
I was trying to think back to, what was the last, big game the Cubs played?
Big game?
Yeah. And I suppose you can go back to, the pandemic year, right? Because they made the playoffs. But nobody got all excited. When was the last time you were like, holy shit, they got to win today because this is important? Maybe, I guess. Well, no,
maybe
last time they won one was
2018.
2018.
Well, in September, I think Mike is right. In September, they were playing
stretch in
important games
2023.
September. They just lost them.
They lost them all.
Because, there was a solid stretch there where they got to within, a game and a half of the Brewers for the division lead, I remember.
I remember being in the bleachers with them against Zach Gallen in a September game. And
that's when everything started to fall apart.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the point I'm trying to make is it's not even, it hasn't even been exciting.
It hasn't. You're right.
This last season was one of the dullest Cubs seasons ever.
Well, they buried themselves so early that even when they went on their run, you're looking up and they're like, oh, they're about to be 500. They won, at one point they won, they won a shit ton of games after the All-Star break. They were, the best record. They went on a run and it was you're looking up and they're fighting to get to 500.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that you think about it, not a bad team. You finished over 500, but there wasn't really ever that iconic game or iconic moment for this team that I guess the closest thing that came to that in the second half would have been that comeback in Pittsburgh when they were down so much.
Yeah.
But
it's funny, they threw a no-hitter and that was boring.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's a fucking combined no-hitter. Once Shota leaves, it's well, all right, now it just becomes a novelty. Can we see it? Who cares?
Yeah. I don't have the same visceral reaction to combine no hitters that you do, but they are boring.
Yeah, they're not.
I still think they're somewhat cool. Looking back, it's kind of nice, but they are boring.
Yeah, it's basically they should just call it. It's shutout plus. That's all it is.
Shutout plus.
Shutout plus. That's all you get. I did they brought up. He got asked about Cody. And he immediately went into, Cody, we knew if we signed him to that deal that if he had a good year, he'd have options. And he had a good year and he's going to have options.
Just talking
about. Did he really have a good year, though?
Basically,
I don't know.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Think how you should probably see how much money you can get for it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, what they should do is they should, if they were a smart team, they'd go to Boris and they'd say, hey, look, if Cody comes back, he's getting 400 plate appearances next year because we've got kids who are ready and we're going to play them. We're going to see what they have and we'll see what happens. And here's the other thing. If you get Cody to opt out, right, first of all, he's probably not going to make more than this amount of money again. But if you get a 5-year, $100 million contract for him, great. Because the other thing is, why don't we take that money plus all the other money that we're saving on a bunch of these other players and sink it into Juan Soto and he can have 15 years and $600 million. If they were smart, that's what they would do. I don't know if that's legal or not. I don't know if Boris would call them out on that or not, but you're giving Soto all the money that you would normally.
I think that would be legal.
Right?
You can't tamper with your own player, right?
Well,
let me throw this out there. There may be a slight chance that Cody does opt out just because of how not how shallow the market is.
Yeah.
Like it's Juan Soto, and then he would be the next best hitter on the market.
Yeah, he's not getting $25 million a year for 2 years, right?
Sure,
he's not getting $25 million a year, but like he could get 5 years and $80 million or 5 years and $90 million.
And I think
that might be more valuable to him at this point.
I think Boris is going to want him, I think, to test the market again.
You think? Yeah.
And he's going to lay that out and basically say, all right, if you go year to year with the Cubs, then when we go to sign another deal, you're probably going to sign like a 3-year deal for $60 million. We can get you more right now over that 5-year period if you opt out than if we try to limp along year after year after year.
See, I don't think he's going to get 3 and 60 after the contract.
But here's what Ian Happ got 3 and 60.
But I don't. Cody Bellinger. First of all, Cody Bellinger is going to be into his 30s, and second of all, I keep saying, I really, really don't think that he's going to get the plate appearances to drive his numbers up with the Cubs. I just don't think.
Well, here's what I was. So if I was Scott Boras and you were Jed and you told me that you weren't going to play him every day, I would be like, oh, fine, right. This is the same organization that kept running Jason Hayward out there every fucking day because you were paying him $25 million a year. Your boss is not going to let you not play Cody. So fuck off. I know you can't do it.
But you go to the boss and you go, well, what we're really doing is playing a $28 million player because Kevin Alcantara is only making the minimum. So who cares, right? It's not like you're replacing.
I just have a feeling that after about 3 days of that, your manager would be writing Cody's name on the lineup card and saying, "This guy's better. He's playing."
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't think
they got to win. That's the other thing. Like Jed can't Jed can't play hard ass whatever. He's got to win games this year.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Last year on the contract.
Idea that you could threaten it to Boris, but then if Cody calls your bluff, you're playing him.
Yeah,
because you're gonna have to. He's one of your best players.
I don't think he is. I think he's good. He's pretty good.
Well, take a look at
it. Makes him one of your better players.
Yeah, that's right. This is the Cubs we're talking about.
This is the Cubs.
Take a look at this team.
Yeah, like Sea's better. Michael Busch is better.
He was his 111 OPS was it was the 4th best in your offense.
Yeah.
So
and who had more at bats? Who was better? Seiya was better.
Seiya, Busch.
Busch had 2 fewer at bats.
Ian Happ was a 120.
Well, Ian Happ really came on in the last couple months. Andy owes him an apology.
Yeah, as soon as the games didn't mean anything, Ian Happ went nuts.
Right.
Who knew? Who saw that coming? How about my new favorite stat? Did you guys see? It was in the thing today. Did you see what Isaac Paredes slugged at Wrigley Field this year?
Oh, God. Let me guess. 310.
He wishes.
Really?
Oh, God.
Nope. Lower.
You're kidding.
We're going to do this. We're going to go lower.
I know he was ever since the trade, he was significantly better on the road with the Cubs than he was at home. But
he slugged at Wrigley Field this year 140.
Jesus, that's like
140. 99 points less than Nick Madrigal's slugged.
Oof.
That's why Nick's not only getting arbitration, he's getting third. They're giving him third base because they need that thunder in the lineup over Isaac. Woo,
man,
it
was very bad. He was an all-star.
That's right, he was an all-star. There you go. That's the guy Jed can hang his hat on as acquiring a star.
I'm now referring to him and the way Pat Hughes would. It's going to be current and former Cub and all-star Isaac Paredes.
But not an all-star with the Cubs, just like Coomer.
Coomer. That's why you have to say all-star. He can't be Cub all-star. He's Cub and all-star.
There we go. Isaac Paredes is current day Dominican, or what nationality is he? Ron Coomer.
No. Isaac is, I believe, Dominican, right?
No, Mexican.
Yeah, he's Mexican. I want to see, why isn't this showing me with Carlos Zambrano? Oh, here we go. Standard betting. Carlos Zambrano's.
Oh, Carlos has
388.
I could
first career.
Carlos outslugged the White Sox this year. His career slugging was higher than the White Sox this year.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been their best hitter now. I think if they had activated it. They saw him one day at Wrigley and said, "You want to come 8 miles south and play today? We need
Luis Robert
in
1,
left field,
Carlos Zambrano 2.
play wherever you want."
Jeez.
But yeah, so that's the problem. There's nobody who is impact who you could say like go after this guy other than Juan Soto, and I don't think there's a chance that the Cubs are.
Yeah, I mean, we think they started leaking that they were interested in, they were going to go after a frontline pitcher.
Yeah. Well, there's more of them available, so it'll be cheaper.
I mean, do we think it's like Corbin Burns frontline pitcher, or is it like the equivalent of Jamison Tyon in 2025 frontline pitcher? Yeah. So
Tyon was good.
More what you got.
I think they're going to be 1 in, 1 out though with that. Like I think there's a chance that Tyon gets traded.
That would break my heart.
How would they ever beat all those under 500 teams without him?
Yeah, I did enjoy. He was one of the guys who, at the end of the season, was like basically criticizing Jed, which I was all for. Yeah. But he's like,
both when I was with Craig were speaking up.
When I was with the Pirates, we feared the Cubs, and he came out and said, "You feared everybody, man. You were the fucking Pirate. You were the worst.
The Pirates were good back then.
And you were bad too." Was he around though when they were good? He wasn't there right after it all went to shit.
Well, it was when McCutcheon left. It all went to shit, right?
When did Big Jimmy play?
I'm looking this up. I gotcha.
Well, he did pitch his rookie year. Wasn't his first start against the 2016 Cubs?
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
MLB
that'll scar you for life.
Must have been a little later than that. His debut was against the Mets. But as a Pirate, he was there through 2019. It's like he made his debut in 2016, so he wasn't even there on the playoff team. But I know, I remember one of those years for the Pirates, that was like the one year that there were 4 over 500 teams in the NL Central, and the Pirates were like very, very close at like just over it.
It was like when Andy makes excuses for the 87 Cubs.
Kind of, yeah.
Hey, that's the best last place team in baseball history.
and which is kind of the ironic thing I think about that.
I would rather hang that banner.
Yes.
Best than three-peat, 5th best record in the National League in the second half.
Right.
Because
I'd rather be the best last place team in baseball history.
Yeah.
Which
I'm pretty convinced that the 98 Cubs were probably the worst playoff team in Major League history.
Yeah, they were fun. They were fun.
They were fun.
They were bad. The 07 Cubs were bad.
07 Cubs pretty bad.
The 2007 Cubs were bad. And they made the playoffs.
You ever take a look at the 2005 Padres? They won the NL West with a record of 82-80.
Whatever. The Cardinals won the fucking World Series with 83 wins in 07.
No, that was... Well, okay, never mind. You were talking about the same year. Right, the same... Yeah, that year there wasn't a World Series. Yeah, exactly.
They didn't have a World Series in 2006.
Or 2005.
Or 11.
Or 11.
Wait, what did you say? Sorry, what?
They didn't have a World Series in 2006.
Yeah.
Right.
05.
If Andy didn't watch it, it wasn't real.
That's right. If I ignore it. I'm trying. I don't remember which year it was, but my wife still remembers this. She saw me. I went out to the mailbox. She must have been expecting mail, and she saw me get the mail. And I pulled the magazine out, and I tore the cover off the magazine and threw it in the street. It was Albert Pujols was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. It didn't make it off the curb. I just tore the cover off and littered. Sorry. I apologize for littering.
Oh, man.
What the fuck? I just wadded it up and threw it. Hey, did you guys go to Tony La Russa's 80th birthday party?
They were out of wine by the time I got there.
They were out of wine before anybody got there. I just found Tony laying under the table with a box of wine on his head.
You know, I was going to catch a ride there with Jerry Reinsdorf. He forgot to pick me up.
I wouldn't get in a car with Jerry Reinsdorf.
Yeah.
No.
It is. I have to admit, I did take pleasure in the White Sox futility this year. I don't know if I should admit that or not, but
they were so bad, and they set the bar so low for futility that everyone across the entire sport of baseball, including a lot of White Sox fans that I'm friends with, took very big enjoyment in it.
Did they? I knew a lot of. I have a lot of not a lot, but Sox fan friends of mine were very much frustrated. I think that they went through the 5 stages of grief throughout the year, right? Like, what is it? Denial, acceptance, whatever. Whatever.
The stages of grief. Yeah.
Rushing the field to assault a first base coach. That's the 4th stage. And
right.
I got 6th.
They
throwing a punch at Andy and missing wildly, like the one. Or wait, no, that was a Cubs fan.
That was a Cub fan. That was at.
But it was
at Sachs Park. But that was a Cub fan who tried to punch me.
Wait, what happened?
I've told this story a million times. So, it was 03, right? Yeah, Troy O'Leary had home run. It was 03. I was there with my buddy Wheels. I sound very Bill Simmons when I call him Neil Wheels.
Sure.
That's what we called him. My buddy Wheels. And he was a Sox fan. We went to see a Cubs Sox Saturday game on Fox. And it was hotter than hell. So we kept, we'd watch a few innings, head down where there was some kind of moving air and pound a couple of beers and then go back. And while we were down there, somebody robbed a home run and like somebody unexpected, like Sammy or somebody. Of course, the fence isn't that high at Sox Park. He jumped up and caught it. And these, I wasn't wearing any, I didn't have like Cub stuff on. I didn't have any kind of like, I was wearing clothes, but you couldn't tell who I was rooting for. And I was these guys were just obnoxious and loud and whatever. And we were hot and we were half in the bag and I just wanted them to shut up. And I was like, and they're like jumping up and down, high five. Yeah, Sammy was like getting in Sox fans' face and like, woo. And I'm like, would you fucker just knock it off? And he turned around, he got all mad, and he reared back to take this wild swing at me. And all of a sudden, he was gone. Like 2 Sox security guys had seen the whole thing, and the minute he reared back, they literally grabbed him and just hauled his ass. I was like, I'm standing there, like I knew I wasn't going to get hit. Right? I knew all I had to do was lean back and watch him fall down. And I was trying to figure out in that split, like, okay, what am I going to do now? Am I going to, have to start wailing on this guy? But he was gone.
Yeah.
And Neil and I looked at each other like, did that just happen? I was like, he was gone.
Yeah.
But they have experience with that there. So they knew what to look for.
Quite a bit.
To me, the thing I enjoyed about Sox fans would have tried to be like, yeah, let's see, we're rebuilding. Now we're going to get the number 1 draft pick and we're going to whatever. And they couldn't get it.
Right.
They have to pick 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they lost all these games for nothing. They might as well have won like 75 games. They would have picked, he wouldn't have humiliated themselves and they would have picked in the same spot.
Well, I'm sure they would have loved to have won 75 games.
The one piece of solace you could take from this if you're a Sox fan is like, if they had actually tried to be good this year, it would have been a complete waste of time because, the AL Central wound up producing 3 playoff teams. But the AL Central winded up
producing 3 playoffs because of them.
Yeah.
Largely because of them. This is true.
Yeah. Right. The Royals were the Royals went 12-1 against them. And the Tigers would have, but they didn't have to win those last 2 games. So they went instead they went, 10-3.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Twins also went 12-1. The team they actually beat were the Guardians. They were like the Guardians lost like 5 or 6 games to them.
So this is how the Cubs find their way back into contention next year, is asking me to move to the AL Central.
Yeah.
Just so, because 4-0 against him in the regular season.
If Bud Selig were only still alive, he would make that happen.
That was my favorite.
He's still alive. He's just not commissioner.
That was my favorite stat. Was at one point late in the season, the Sox, their record against, they only had a winning record against 5 teams, and 4 of them were in the National League. They'd won like 2. They went like 2-1, 2-1, 3-0, whatever. Against the other 24 teams in baseball, they had 23 wins.
Jeez.
There were more teams than wins.
God,
that's how many teams swept their season series or won 1 game, or lost once to the Sox. They just completely skewed the American League playoffs. The Mariners, the reason Scott Service got fired is because of the White Sox.
Yeah. Because they never played enough games.
They missed the playoffs by they missed it by 2 games because they didn't have the tiebreaker on the Tigers or the Royals. But they finished 1 game plus a tiebreaker out of the playoffs, and those 2 teams got, at least 10 free wins because they were playing the Sox. Well, and the Mariners cleaned up on them too. They were 5-1, I think, against the White Sox.
Well, speaking of the Mariners, they are basically the team that is most heavily rumored to be a trade partner with the Cubs because they would want to get Nico Hoerner, I would think. And I will say, with all this Nico Hoerner trade talk, I feel similarly how you feel, Andy, about like, the Cubs going out and getting, wanting to get maybe not wanting to get a star, but like needing a star and thinking they can get it possibly at catcher.
I don't get the big dumper. They're going to get the big dumper.
Cal Raleigh.
Who's not that good, but he has a great nickname.
Yeah.
Big ass. He's not that good.
I think I'm fine with them sticking with Amaya. Like, I'd rather them trade Michael Bush for like a first baseman. Better first baseman. And you're going to trade Nico.
I think similarly with Nico, like you bring up trading away Bush for a first baseman. Who are you improving with? Like the only guy out there I could see that you could trade him to is Vlad Guerrero. That's who I was going to bring up, but I don't
trade Bush and a top prospect, get Vlad Guerrero back. The Blue Jays get a little bit younger, they get a little bit cheaper.
Or the most important thing I've heard from a really smart baseball guy: organizational positioning.
Yeah,
and that when the Cubs are organizationally positioned, as this guy said, they got a loaded farm system. They've got good players on the big league roster. Nobody with a bad contract. The world is their and they can spend money. The world is their oyster. They could trade some of these good players who are on value deals. They could trade some of these top prospects that teams are just beating down the door to get. Why couldn't they get Vladimir Guerrero? I mean, they might as well. It's just like when George thought he was going to interview for assistant general manager, and he's over there writing it down. He's like, "Hey, I figured out a way we can get Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey Jr." He's going to show that to Mr. Steinbrenner. It's the same idea. They can get whatever they want. Honestly, if he really, they do have assets, right? They could make.
Oh, absolutely.
They could make a big trade. Do they have the balls to actually do it?
Well, I don't think anybody else like I'm saying. I don't know what teams out there have impact players to trade, or what teams are going to trade impact players. Especially when you consider that you're going to be competing with Baltimore theoretically for some of the top pitchers. You're probably going to be competing with the Mets. The Mets have a ton of money coming off the books. I mean, they're still going to be over the luxury tax, but the Mets are going to be in the ballgame. Like, what I'm afraid is going to happen is they're going to get Pete Alonso for 6 years. And he's going to suck for 4 of them.
You're going to get a right-handed bad defense first baseman.
Yeah.
Who's will put up some pretty hollow, pretty decent numbers, and hang your hat on the one opposite field home run he hit.
He still has
the Brewers out of the playoffs
because he's back. He's just the kind of player that fits with what the Cubs are doing, which sucks.
Well, Tom, if I've heard Tom Regis talk about it once, I've heard him talk about it 1,000 times. He loves nothing more than a guy who lifts weights during the home run derby, and that's what Pete. That's what Pete's famous for.
Like next year, he's just going to bring out the bench press onto the field. And
I was surprised this year it wasn't. Actually, it would have been a funny shtick. They should have done it.
Yeah,
had him actually doing that stuff like right next to the dugout.
Yeah. See, okay, now you're starting to scare me into thinking, because the Ricketts have been banging the drum so hard for them to finally get an All-Star game at Wrigley Field, and if they get the guy who is like always winning the home run derby, that'll make them more likely to get one. So,
well, if that were the case, then they would have traded for Bryce Harper after he beat Schwarber, right?
Cheated. But he cheated.
Right,
exactly. You cheated.
Tom would have traded for him. They didn't like the fact he cheated.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, that's bad character. I'm not trading for that.
That's bad character.
Right. Very adverse to cheating.
You knew what the rules were. So what could you get for Nico? Can you get Brian Woo for Nico?
I don't know. Whatever.
That's. I'm not really familiar.
You got to
with
get at some point. It's Brian Woo has to play for the Cubs, right?
At least before Ronnie dies. Yeah.
Hopefully after.
Stop.
Hopefully after Ronnie dies, and hopefully they sign him next week.
Andy.
What? Ronnie listens to the podcast.
Big fan, I'm sure.
He sits. He'll sidle up next to people who are listening to podcasts on their phone. He'll just eavesdrop.
Well, are there any beautiful young women who listen to this podcast?
Yes, of course. That's pretty much that's most of the demographic. Or beautiful women.
Oh yeah,
that's who's listening to this podcast. Well, we can't get Brian Woo. I'll settle for. I guess I'd settle for Bryce Miller.
Yeah, I mean, they're not trading any of those guys for for Nico Hoerner.
What? Of course
Maybe
they are.
Emerson Hancock. We might get Emerson Hancock for him.
That sounds about right.
I guess I'd settle for them getting Julio
What do we need?
Rodriguez
We got-
if there's an opening in the
got,
outfield.
we got round-faced Nate Pearson. We're set.
I mean, he pitched pretty well.
He did.
You know,
He
and
did.
with a full off season in that pitch lab.
Oh man, imagine.
holy
I don't know.
Wait.
This is good. Let's talk about this about 20 minutes. Will he even give up a hit next year?
Oh,
Once the pitch lab
no
gets a hold,
chance.
I don't know who's going to hit him. It's going to be unfair.
Maybe that's the thing. Pete Alonso is going to figure out how he's tipping his pitches.
There you go.
And that'll do it.
Could be.
To get back to what I was saying about Nico originally, though, like I feel similarly about like the Cubs going. You know, you brought it up with the Cubs potentially acquiring a catcher and trying to improve their offense that way, but there's no real, star catchers out there.
No, that's
Conversely, it's a flawed stat, but Nico Hoerner was, I think, second among second basemen in F4 this past season. He's not all that great of a hitter. He's never going to be a big power threat, but he had by far the worst season of his career as a hitter, and I could see him bouncing back next season to what he was in 2022, 2023.
right. So, but
He's a
the whole
perfectly fine player.
the whole thing is Nico. Like Nico will be is a good player on a good team, right? Like he does
He's
a lot of really good
perfectly fine
things.
player.
The Cubs, given the way they've built this roster, they just don't have. They only have a few pieces they can actually trade,
Right.
which is why his name comes up all the time. He's one of the few guys who other teams are like, "Oh, I'd like to have that guy," and that's who you're going to have to trade. Is somebody who other teams are like, "Oh yeah, we could use him." Instead of, fans are always like, "Why don't we trade? Let's trade Nick Madrigal."
Well, I think
Because nobody wants to play for him.
right.
So it's not like an even if they trade him, it's not the Cubs saying, "Oh, fucking Nico can't play." Basically, it's them saying, of the guys that were attractive to other teams, this is the one spot we think, like if they can't replace him,
that would.
what are
be
you
my-
doing? You can't. Your wonderful farm can't produce a solid second baseman.
Yeah,
I guess
I mean,
But
isn't
that
that what Matt
would-
Shaw is supposed to be?
Yeah.
that would be my worry, though. Like, we don't know that Matt Shaw has really his original position was what? Third
Short.
base, shortstop, shortstop maybe.
If you could play shortstop in college, you can play second base.
Yeah. I mean, the Padres-
Third is more of a stretch for
Yeah.
him, I think, than
Here's the
Okay.
thing is that what I'll say this: Nico Hoerner is a perfectly fine ball player. He's exactly what the Cubs are, right? Which is a perfectly fine ball player, 83 win ball player. That's what the Cubs have. They have a bunch of 83 win ball players, right? Like you could see if Seiya Suzuki gets 600 plate appearances, you could see him getting to 30 home runs and maybe close to 30 stolen bases.
I really like Seiya, but when his numbers always end up good, it's a surprise to me.
Well,
Like,
that's
you
not-
watch
that's
him
true.
every day, and then you look like, geez, it's really had an 839 OPS. How come?
Dude, the guy's
It's like-
good. The guy's really
He is good, but he also goes through these
Yeah.
long stretches of nothing.
Well, it's not long stretch, but yeah, a lot of guys do. I mean, that's baseball.
He goes
Juan
through long
Soto.
stretches of nothing, and you're also kind of forced to either play him at DH or, if you have
Well,
to
he
play him
should-
in the field, left
he
field.
He should be their left fielder, but they booked that spot.
Yeah.
For the same amount of time they have
Only 2
Seiya
more
left.
years, Andy. Only 2 more years.
Yeah, for both of them. So just
Yeah.
the time it's open, Seiya's like, I'm going to go play for a real team now. And he leaves. And then you're like, oh, shit. And we don't have either. Although I wouldn't.
I love saying, like, I always, I have to confess that I always get a little anger in the blood when you talk about trading Seiya.
Well, you can't trade him. And I want to trade Hap. I don't want to trade Seiya.
I know. But that's what the Cubs have, and that's the problem.
I mean,
right?
that to me that's a move they need to make. Like, so if they're serious about it,
Yeah.
they have to figure out a way to trade Ian Happ.
Yeah, well,
That's a guy that other teams would be like, he's, all the things we make fun of because he's just kind of, he's like aggressively average. But he put up good numbers again, even though, he was far more productive right-handed than he had been for a long time. He actually got a few hits that way. Like, there is a market for him. You fucked it up by giving him the no trade. So now you have to, you're going to have to make it worth his while
Yeah.
to say yes.
Yeah.
But there's a way to do it. But I don't even think they have you put a hurdle in front of this front office and they just stop.
Yeah. The reason why they gave him a no trade clause was because I'm sure he went out there and said, if I hit the open market, I can get more than 3 years and 6.
Yeah, and I would have said, all right, good
luck with that.
Any decent.
Because I don't think
said that.
Yeah.
But the Cubs were like, no. What if we sign him for 3 years, $60 million? We'll give him the no trade, and then we're fine. And then we don't have to give out these long contracts. You have what is it? Organizational. What'd you call it?
Positioning.
Organizational positioning. Yeah.
They're positioned well.
Yes. No, I mean, I know what the Cubs' thinking was, right?
Yeah.
This guy's a bargain at $20 million a year, and it's only 3 years.
Yeah.
To me, they clearly traded the no trade for the short term.
Yes.
In fact, you could argue that Happ was stupid to sign that contract. But he clearly, that was what? So that was 2 years ago now that he signed it because he played. We got to know what was coming for a whole year before it started.
Year one. Yep.
So it felt like 4 years to us because once he signed it, they weren't going to trade him. Right. He didn't really have a good track record. He had been way too up and down,
True.
And he didn't want to risk it.
True.
That was like him being. That's like a clear-headed. Like this is good money. How the fuck? I mean, I got all this podcast money rolling in too. So the $60 million from the Cubs is just gravy. I got coffee money. I got podcast money. Mm-hmm. This is like free $60 million. Let's just do it.
Yeah, don't forget.
Yeah, I got all that. And judging from I got a couple of shots of him the last weekend. It's time to go in for he needs a reseeding. his needs to reseed his reseed.
Yeah. So you're right. Hoerner's like
but that's why Nico's name keeps coming up. Nico and Bush, and Bush also throws people in. Oh my God, he's so
I know.
Good.
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
Like you're gonna if you're gonna make a trade, you're gonna have to probably trade one of those two guys.
Because you could trade Hoerner. Like my thing is, what if you go to the Dodgers and go give us? I don't know if Evan Phillips is a free agent or not, right? But he's sort of down. I think Nico Hoerner is going to make a little bit of money in the next couple of years. He's not cheap anymore.
He's not that. Right. He's
Is he? He might be at $20 million, like in a couple of years. But anyway, my point being is like, what if?
He signed an extension. So when does what's it? Let's look at his contract.
I don't even know how to spell.
Yeah, he signed a 3-year, $35 million contract. So it's $11.7 million. That's
the average, but what's like in real money? Like that's a contract that goes up, right? I don't know. You look it up.
No, it was 11.5 this year, 11.5
and 12
next year if he stays, and then 12 in 26.
Oh, okay. All right, well that's not too bad.
So nothing too terrible.
Yeah. So you might be able to get something back.
See, that's another. So he's also on a good contract.
Yeah.
Just like Jed said.
Right.
It's all true. Everything he said. Oh, I apologize. But but for people who are like, I can't believe they would consider, that's why. Right. And if you trade him, if the Cubs trade him, they're like, I wish we hadn't trade him. That's their own fault. Their roster building led to this, where they had holes and they had basically painted themselves into a few corners. And now a guy that they thought they were going to have, he's a luxury they can't afford, right? It's not enough offense. They don't have that many spots they can improve offense at.
Yeah.
And this is a way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, where you would really, like, he's going to go to a good team and they're going to be like, Jesus, this guy hitting 8th for us. Yeah. He plays great defense. He's a good base runner. He's a really good player. And the Cubs, like, that would have been great to have had that. But we had to bat him 6th and 5th because our lineup blew.
Yeah. And here's the thing about Nico Hoerner is that if you at any point trade Nico Hoerner and you end up missing Nico Hoerner, then I think you've got other problems. And so, like, I'm pretty like Nico Hoerner's I have nothing against him. He's a perfectly fine ball player, and that's exactly my point. He's a perfectly fine ball player.
I would say if
his glove is still pretty damn valuable, though.
He's a perfectly fine ball player. I'm not criticizing Nico Hoerner.
I'm just I'm not. I would say I think he's
Nico,
slightly better than just.
I would just say if Nico missed a plane on a road trip, I wouldn't notice till Game 3.
Maybe.
Well, there are other reasons for that because there are times where the Cubs just don't play him and then don't put him on the injured list when he's hurt, when he could go on the injured list. But that's again, not Nico's doing.
There's a place you can help. Not only that, but we've ignored
the ideal replacement for Nico, right? It's not Matt Shaw. It's Nick Madrigal. Finally, Nick has a spot. So offer him arbitration. Bring him back. Bring back the laser show. It's going to be amazing.
I know you're joking, but if they replace
I don't think he is.
Nick Madrigal or Nico Hoerner with Nick Madrigal, you would notice it on defense too.
I will. Well, I'll tell you.
I would notice it because I'd be looking out there like, why don't we have a second baseman?
Yeah.
Why isn't there? Oh, sorry, Nick went behind the bag.
Yeah.
Couldn't see him. I know he's back there.
I changed my vote. I do think that there's one way that I would miss Nico Hoerner, and that's if somehow Nick Madrigal gets on.
That was plan B.
Yeah.
They trade Nico and Matt Shaw, and they sign Madrigal to a 8-year deal and with a no trade. They're like, well, we know he didn't get to play at Iowa this year because he broke his hand in his first at bat. Yeah. There, we projected though he was gonna hit 412 there. So we're giving him a contract based on what our projection said he would have hit if he hadn't broken the tiny little bird bones in his hand.
Yes, tiny bird bones.
Yeah.
Man. Oh. This conversation is making me sad now.
Isn't it interesting though? Here we are with this great farm system they have, and none of the answers to this is, well, this guy's ready. I mean, it's Matt Shaw is like the one guy we've actually mentioned.
No, yeah, but Matt Shaw's ready. I think I feel fine with Kevin Alcantara, at least getting some at bats, doing something. I think Owen Casey would probably be ready by the middle of the year. Like, you got guys who are
right. They could be ready, but what are they?
Right, there are guys their bats are ready. But they never made him, they never put him at any one defined position in the minors.
Fine. Whatever.
Alcantara is like the only one of those guys who you figure would come up and you just be fine.
Right.
In the field.
But it's not. Look, the Cubs did it in the middle of playoff races.
It cracks me up. It cracks me up that there are people who will tell you with a straight face that the solution to catcher is Moises Ballesteros.
That's crazy.
You can't tell me that fat little fucker is really a big league catcher. He's just not.
There's no way. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree, but I also don't understand why Miguel Amaya hasn't earned his spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's two reasons why we need a bat. We're just going to get a catcher is ridiculous, right? It's like number one,
I agree.
There's no catcher to get. The other thing is what you really need is you need a second catcher who you feel more comfortable playing just because of catcher.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Like, yeah, Amaya, he improved a lot in the second half. You worry about but even if only some of that sticks, there's no reason not to have that be your number one catcher, but you need a better number two catcher than, we'll go with Christian Bethencourt. He slugged 500 for us in 18 at bats. He proved
sure, that's sustainable.
No, he didn't.
Well, it's all right. Here we go. My weekly or however often we do these hockey thing. It's like when you have two goalies because you need a goalie. Unless you have one of the top 8 goalies in the league, you kind of need a goalie who's going to pick up 20 or 30 starts a year, and that's which is about 40%, 33, a third of the starts, right? So you need a capable catcher who can pick up a third of the starts over Amaya. Maybe once in a while you let Amaya DH, just a guy kind of, again, I believe in his bat. I believe in the adjustments he made. Like, what the fuck do I know?
Do you think? Oh, sorry. I mean, I got ahead. I started thinking before you finished.
Okay, that's all right.
Do you think Miguel Amaya could he have this slash line next year? 244, 303, 409. Could that be a Miguel Amaya slash line? Okay. So at the deadline,
OPS,
they were going to trade, or supposedly they were trying to trade for Logan O'Hoppe.
Is that what he finished with?
That's what Logan O'Hoppe finished with.
Yeah.
You might as well just stick with Miguel Amaya.
That's my point.
Get a real veteran. That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you. Get a veteran backup who isn't dead like Jan Gomes would. And then move on to another. If for some reason there were 3 offensive catchers available, then upgrade a catcher. There isn't. There's nobody to get.
Agreed.
So now, if he had continued to play the way he did, if his mid-season stats were his end-of-season stats, you'd look at it like there's a crisis. Because you'd be like, well, shit, Miguel can't handle it. But then he actually did hit.
Agreed.
And so it's like, okay, that crisis averted.
And it wasn't, and like I said, I think the one thing that gives me confidence about it is that the second half stats weren't just stats of him doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the
he did make the adjustment with
he completely changed his
kick,
his swing. And it's another one of those things where it's like, why did it take them so long to try? Like he wallowed for so long. You know, I know there's this thing about a player has to fail to a point where it's like, okay, I'm ready to do whatever. But this had been going on for months, and he's basically a rookie. You know, it's like, who is he to tell the coach? Well, no, that's not my approach.
Right. Well,
he barely played. He barely played for the last 4 years. It's like
exactly, and that's the thing, right? Is that you don't have this. Like you have to either let him figure it out and eventually say, okay, it's not working. And he just didn't have the plate appearances over the last 3 to 4 years to be able to, for them to be able to say that. Now, and the real problem was because they had to put him on the 40-man roster 3 years ago.
Yeah, they
was out of on top.
Yeah, they couldn't say he would have gone in a normal roster situation, a normal second year catcher.
Yeah,
they would have just sent him back to Iowa for a month to work on his swing to get everything. Yep. And then he would have come back, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't because he had to stay on the big league roster.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so they changed the swing, and then he was a productive player after that. I think if I want to be charitable to them, it could be that they really had to fix it. They spent the first half of the season trying to fix his defense.
Yeah.
He was missing pitches, like literally just not catching them.
Yeah.
The throwing thing. We've pointed this out. This podcast, nobody threw anybody out this year. They changed the rules so you could steal bases.
Right.
So the whole percentage throwing, he's not a terrible throwing catcher.
No,
But for a big chunk of the first half, it was like, holy shit, how did he miss that? Or that improved first, and he got so you didn't worry about his defense. And then after that, so I almost wonder if they just did it in stages. like right now we got to get him to catch the fucking ball. Once he catches the ball, then we can deal with the swing.
Sure. Yeah, I buy that. Like, and that's fair. Like, whatever.
Right.
So anyway, my point being that,
but really, I wanted to keep Miguel Amaya, so they trade Nico Hoerner. So they get rid of Nico because I'm sick of him. I hate that guy. But again, everybody hates him. Everybody hates him. He's the worst.
Like even to that point, like Miguel Amaya is a perfectly fine ball player.
Yeah, and he fits in on this team, right? He's like, there's just like his ceiling is league average. Woo! All right, let's go.
Well, it's not that. It's that I think it's the it's not even the ceiling. Like all these guys, like Matt Bush. Holy cow! Michael Bush can have. By the way, Matt Bush
less drinking.
Guy.
Did he?
Yeah. Michael Bush is a guy who probably has another step to take and can be pretty good, but he's 28 years old.
Gold Glover.
Is he Gold Glover?
Jed said no. He's Gold Glove potential, and that's why I wondered: are we talking real Gold Glove or Ian Happ Gold Glove? What are we talking?
At first base, I think at first base you might get into the Ian Happ Gold Glove just because Goldschmidt and Rizzo are both old.
Rizzo left. He's changed leagues.
Well, you don't have to compete with Rizzo, right? Yeah.
No, Bush was. He legitimately was by midseason. He was a good first baseman. Not just he was good.
Yeah, he's a perfectly fine ball player.
Oh my God.
That's the whole thing. Like, he's a perfectly fine ball player.
He's right. And the whole idea is you've got enough of those.
Yes, exactly.
You need something more. Exactly. And so to get one of those, you have to give up some of the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but that's like I keep saying, the other side of that is that you just simply don't have. There's just those players are not available. They're just not. So you kind of almost have to hope that maybe somebody from maybe Matt Shaw can be a 6-win player or 7-win player. But you need like somebody who can go into the year saying this guy legitimately can be an MVP.
They're going to need,
he may not be, but he can be, and you have faith in him being an MVP candidate.
Given the approach they're clearly going to take to this roster, they're going to need one of those young guys to just be a lot better than anybody projects him to be.
Yes.
Like one of those. Well, the only way for them to get a star is one of those guys all of a sudden has to holy shit, this guy's even better than we thought. That's what they're going to need. Because they just don't seem to have the appetite to go get one otherwise.
Yeah. I think they're going to have these guys to be 90th percentile anyway, the guys on the farm. Like they're not that's kind of the problem with their projection system is that I think that they project their own guys to be
clearly they overvalue their own. They overvalue their own players, which is terrible because then you hang on to guys long after you should. They did it with, like, I always, to me, well, we debunked the whole Theo ruthless tactician. He was very good at his job, but this whole idea that he would trade anybody and he would cut his mother to do whatever because he traded Nomar, and then you find out that basically the players begged him to get rid of Nomar because he'd been such a pain in the ass. It was super easy. He didn't have to worry about the clubhouse. He had to worry about the clubhouse if he didn't trade Nomar, not if he did.
Right. And then they ended up winning the World Series.
But this whole idea, like, shouldn't the Cubs have realized before everybody else that Albert Almora was not that good and gotten something for him? But they just decided he was going to be better. They just kept, like, he was a highly thought of prospect. There were some scouts who were like, dude seems a little slow. I mean, but great contact. Someday he'll learn to control the strikes. He'll learn to take more pitches or whatever. That's when the Cubs should have been like, hey, we're going for it. So we don't want to make Albert Almora available, but we've got to do, And they didn't. They kept him forever, and then they got rid of him for nothing, just like everybody else.
I think other teams also saw that, right? I think other teams.
Yeah, but you only need one other team.
I know.
That's like, hey, that guy's good.
No.
Well, give us something for him then. But they didn't really do it with any of those guys. And then Jed, he repeated the whole, like, one of his reasons reluctant to make these, like, big daring moves is, we don't want to end up in a position like we were after the World Series run where we traded away all these great young players. He didn't trade away a bunch of great young players.
Yeah, they did.
We've seen the list. One of them he brought back.
Mm-hmm. Two of them.
He saw his back with he brought Jamer back 2 years ago, and he was so enthralled with him, he let him go again.
Yeah. And he signed with Cincinnati, like the big Cincinnati move for $15 million a year.
I mean, it's the best player they got rid of was Dylan Cease or Glaber. Yeah. If Glaber's still coasting off the 38 home runs against the Orioles a couple of years ago.
You're talking strictly just guys they traded as prospects.
Yeah.
Correct?
Because that's what he was saying was that the reason that the farm system was struggling was they drafted like shit. Yeah. And they, even in the years they were producing like really good players, after the first round, their drafts were crap. Like what they were really good at was drafting in the top 7. Yeah. And other than that, they didn't do much. And then it ended up, it bit them in the ass. And so they had to trade everybody. And then I got all these great prospects that, will be nice when we see one of them.
Justin Steele Justin Steele was like a 5th round pick, wasn't he? But I think it was also the year when they didn't have like the first 2 first round picks because they signed Hayward.
Yeah, and they used their
and Lackey, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
he was a guy that was a really good pick. They bought him out of his commitment to Auburn or somewhere.
Yeah,
and they were able to do it because they didn't have like.
Well, you don't get that. You don't.
I know, but they were able to, like, they didn't have their first 2 rounds, but they could basically take like that. They could underdraft in like the 3rd, 4th, and then stretch in the 5th and spend that. Basically, screw the 3rd and 4th rounders and give all the money to the 5th rounder field.
Yep.
That's what they did. That's a good strategy. And we talked about this before though too. Theo's whole strategy to rebuild the Cubs, Jerry Reinsdorf fucked him over as soon as he got the job. 100%. And it was because in the old days, you could trade for a pending free agent during the season and then get a draft pick if he left you. Yeah. That was the old rule, and they were going to do that. They were just going to go shopping for guys they thought, well, this guy, we don't really need him, but he's going to get a deal, and then we're going to get a draft pick for him. They were going to blow. There was no international spending cap. They were going to go nuts, and they did. They got Jorge and Glaber the one year they were able to do it. And then they were going to, in the draft, they were going to overslot guys and just throw huge amounts of money at them. And every one of those rules got changed before they got a chance to do any of it.
Yep, 100%. Yep, that's all. Because I'm like right after they signed Soler, that's when they that's when they put the
rule had already been changed, just wasn't in effect yet. So that was their one chance to do it. Yeah. And they signed Glaber and Jorge in the same.
Yeah.
How exactly did Reinsdorf factor into that?
He hated all those rules, and he managed to. He got all the fucking small. Even though he's in a big market, he's a small market owner. He convinced him all these rules were bad. When in reality, those rules actually were an advantage to the small market teams because you could do some of that and get good players. Yeah. And he didn't want to do any of it, and he convinced a bunch of them that's what they should do. And Bud was still
getting
around,
some of his
and
better
he was able
players.
To ram it through.
It was probably how he was getting some of his better players with all the guys they got from Cuba over the years.
Honestly. I don't. Well, other than Luis Robert, they traded.
I'm talking before that. I'm talking like Alexei Ramirez, like Jose Abreu. That era.
Jose Abreu was like, I don't know, 46 years old.
True. This is true.
Yeah, I don't know. Alexi Ramirez, is that who we're hanging our hat on as being good?
Cuban Missile.
For a guy who was like a pretty regular player and put up good stats, he would fit right in on this Cubs team. He was a perfectly fine player.
Hey, they could get him.
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
How old? Bring him back.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Maybe the Cubs get Yohan Moncada.
Yes.
There was earlier in the year, I kind of kept thinking that maybe there's a chance to trade for Moncada. I don't remember who I was thinking the Cubs could trade for. Oh, Madrigal for Moncada. Because I'm sure that the White Sox would love to have Madrigal back in this before, like maybe in April or
Moncada and what else?
Yeah.
I mean,
I would imagine
not giving away the all of our stars.
Yeah.
All right, we want to talk about the Bears for just a few minutes, but before we go, I want you. The Cubs have to make a decision. I think in the next week. No, arbitration stuff. Maybe not till the. I think that happens. It doesn't have till after the World Series. So the day after the World Series.
That feels like January when that normally happens.
That's when they exchange the numbers, but you have to.
Okay.
But you have to tender the contract or do whatever.
I see.
You have to tell them their intent, and then they get to.
Why does everybody think that it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to tender Talkman?
I don't. I wrote today. I'm glad you read the newsletter.
Oh, I did not. Today
He was not on my list of the ones I thought.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like
he's a 34-year-old fifth out. Especially if Cody comes back, he's your fifth outfielder.
Yeah, at best.
Aren't one of the guys from Iowa supposed to be ready to take that job?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Real quick point on Talkman, by the way. There's literally a guy that the Cubs had in spring training who has been a better version of Mike Talkman that is now on a playoff team. David Peralta. Yeah.
I mean, I will cut the Cubs a little slack. Peralta couldn't throw a baseball during spring training because of his elbow. And then they let him, he played at Iowa, but he could only play like some of the time. And then his contract, he got to that point in the contract where they'd already agreed.
He could opt out, yeah.
And so he opted out. And then nobody signed him for a while and he thought he fucked up. And then he ended up on the
Padres.
He started with the Dodgers though, right? Or no, that's where he came from. I think he was somewhere in between, and now he's on the Padres and he's playing. So the Cubs, I think that they will give arbitration to our Paredes, Steele, Adbert, and Big Face Nate Pearson. The guys they won't are Wisdom, Talkman, Bethancourt, Yency, Madrigal, Wingenter, Jerry Merriweather. Oh, I thought they'd bring back Keegan, because it'll be less than $1 million. Colton Berg, Colton Brewer, and Jimmy Herget, whoever the fuck Jimmy Herget is, are gone.
I know those people.
I could see how Monte he had a few good outings before he.
Yeah, but you're not going to pay. You got to pay him like his projected arbitration thing is over $2 million.
Yeah,
you can.
I don't think.
Honestly, don't offer him arbitration. See if he's healthy and just sign him.
Unfortunately,
invite him to spring training.
I don't think they're tendering Alzolay. He's going to miss the year. He's going to miss the year, and he made $2.1 million. I think they could sign him, like re-sign him to a minor league roster or whatever, to rehab, and then give him money.
I can see that. A little wink, wink. We're not going to offer you arbitration, but we want you to stick around.
Still going to be arbitration eligible after you sign a minor league contract.
Hopefully, I don't do that with Nick. We're not going to offer you arbitration, but we'd love to keep you. So how about this, dude?
Yeah.
You still have your place in Des Moines?
Yeah, I think it's down to maybe 4, including Keegan Thompson, but I could care less if they lose him or not. But I think it's Pearson, Steele, and Paredes.
Why isn't everybody on pins and needles whether they're going to pick up David Bodie's option?
Isn't he already gone?
I have an alert set up. No, he had to go to Iowa.
They just DFA'd him. They DFA'd him. Okay.
The amount of money.
It seems like a little thing, right? Like who cares? I mean, I don't like David Bodie either, but who cares? It's David Bodie. But they literally DFA'd him like 4 days before he would have got to his 5-year service time. The only reason 5-year service time is important is if a guy has 5 years of service time, he can, and then you try to send him down, he can refuse the assignment, and he gets to keep. You have to pay him his salary, and then he can go sign with another team. Where before, if he refused it, he forfeited that money from the Cubs, and then he go sign with somebody else. And the Cubs clearly did it. They sent him to Iowa because they were like, well, we might still need him. What the really?
Yeah.
Just let him go. Just let him. Nobody's gonna. There's no good team's gonna sign him, but maybe he can go somewhere he can actually play. He is a baseball player. He might actually want to go. He's destined to go to the Rockies. He might as well have gone to the Rockies then and played for them.
Right. We spent all this time talking about Nick Madrigal replacing Nico Hoerner. That's your Nico Hoerner replacement is David Bodie.
No, that's not a replacement. That's an upgrade.
Money coming off the books. They have so much money coming off the books. It's bonkers. They have $13 million coming off the books between Mancini and Gomes.
Right, so here's what worries me about that. So they somehow blundered over the luxury tax this year. So next year is reset. Can't go over again. We got to reset. It's very important because these penalties are so bad. Even though we've proven over and over again that the penalties, especially the first tier, are nothing. It's not worth worrying about, but the Cubs do. So another reason for Jed not to spend.
But 27 plus 7 is 34, 40. They got like $45 million coming off the books. And so even if they want to get under the luxury tax for whatever stupid fucking reason, like it's not that big a deal.
Give Juan Soto $44 million. You're still under.
There you go. Problem solved, Jed.
And trade Nico Hoerner. Get that money off the books. They're all set. You sign 11 guys for $1 million to round out the roster and go get them. World Series.
You know who's not getting traded? Caleb Williams.
Damn right.
He got benched at the end of that game. Did you see that? Tyson
Bagent
Bagent came in to finish up.
Many are saying quarterback controversy.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed out that Tyson Bagent somehow had I don't know what QBR. I don't know what any of those stats were, but the 3 kneel downs gave him some positive.
No turnovers.
It was something ridiculous.
Yeah, I hope the people whinging about Caleb. Hope they got it out of their system.
Right. I mean, hell, the peak of the panic felt like that game in Houston, and it's his first primetime game, first road game, and wasn't great. Houston yesterday held Josh Allen to 9 for 30.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a guy who is a perennial MVP contender.
They also gave him a nap right on the
that too. That too.
But he has a chest injury. He was fine. He was out. He was face down on the turf. Oh, it hurt my chest. Okay. Sure, Josh.
Yeah, it's I don't even give a shit about that. It's anybody who panicked over my point at one point was people who said there seemed to be a bunch of people who were saying that Justin Fields was given up on too soon after 3 years, who were willing to give up on Caleb Williams after 3 games.
After 3 games, yeah. Well, we gave him a realistic shot. It's a failure. We got to move on.
Dude, I can't stop. I got to be honest. I probably watched it at least 30 or 40 times, but that throw to DJ Moore in the end zone.
Ooh.
Holy shit.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And then,
nothing we've ever seen.
Before against the Rams, the throw that he made to DJ Moore in the end zone was crazy. Sure. Holy shit, this guy's good. I'm not even afraid of jinxing or saying it. The Bears have a real quarterback.
Yeah. And I think one of the impressive things about it is when you watch what they ask him to do, he's doing everything. He's getting to the line. He's having to identify the defense. He's making the audibles. They went up tempo repeatedly where it was just, all right, Caleb, you call it. And he's running the offense because he understands how to do all that stuff. And this was, I think by what's Mitch now? Year 8, he might be almost ready to do some of this.
Not a chance.
No, he's not. He's the dumbest person in the world.
In fact, the funny thing about Josh, I don't remember where I read this. Maybe it was in your newsletter, where Josh Allen was like, "Wait, Mitch is going in? Give me my helmet."
That's about right.
Right.
Yeah, it's the part of it is even when he was struggling early, there were just so many problems with the offense that to me it wasn't like I can't believe Caleb is struggling. It was like you've got to get this shit together. Like he was not their problem even when they were struggling. Like we've seen bad quarterbacks. We know what that looks like. Even in his worst, he looked far more equipped to be playing than a lot of guys we've had. But the play calling was nonsensical, and some of the formations they line up in, you look at it like, well, they can't fucking block these guys. Look how they're
the Houston game notwithstanding. I think the narrative would have been different, and I know it's a huge if, and I get it. But if Keenan Allen doesn't drop that touchdown pass against the Titans, and if Caleb Williams doesn't overthrow, was it DJ Moore? Or was it a Dunze? Doesn't overthrow whoever it was in the Titans game down the sideline.
That was Keenan, too.
It was Keenan?
That was also Keenan,
really wide open.
Yeah, and that was just a terrible throw.
It's a completely different narrative, completely different.
But like even in the Houston game, early in the game, he was 11 for 12.
Yeah.
Like he's he's in the pocket there. And Houston basically, what Houston realized was the Bears couldn't pick up the blitzes.
Yeah.
And so they could just blitz. And it wasn't because he couldn't figure out where the ball was supposed to go. They literally couldn't block the guys. Yeah. And he was wearing their asses like a hat. And he was screwed.
Yeah.
He was inconsistent in the game in Indianapolis. He had big numbers, but he missed some plays.
Well, it was on 52 passes.
But they still should have won. If they don't call 4 of the most mind-numbingly dumb plays from 1st and goal at the 2, including an option play on 4th down where nobody blocked anybody, they win that game.
Yeah, that
and then he has been, in the last 2 weeks, the last 2 games, he's thrown, by what I could tell, he's thrown one pass that you're like, oh. And that was the first pass of the game on Sunday when Keenan had to knock the ball out of J.C. Horn's hands. He's not even putting the ball in danger when he's making these throws. I mean, it's been very impressive. It's nice. It's nice to watch. I relaxed about 2 drives into the game after the first DJ Moore touchdown pass on Sunday. I was like, I think we're fine.
Yeah,
like he knows what he's doing. Right. The offense is. There's still problems with it, but they have got their shit together far more. Like they seem to have an actual plan. Like Waldron's got a better idea on. Okay, I think maybe we can actually block this play.
Well, after Waldron got a talking to, like, hey, get your head out of your ass.
Mercedes Lewis basically told him, said, "You need to start fucking yelling at us."
Yeah,
not them. Us.
Start yelling at us.
Yeah,
especially you, Mercedes, for all the
things you're gonna
done. Fuck.
The best, I think my favorite part of that game wasn't when Shelton called out the blitz, but it was how calmly Caleb Williams said, "I know." I get it, man. Like I see him too.
Yeah,
and it was that like
was that the fucking fire that you could hear?
Fucking fire over here, and Caleb's like, "I know." Like it's just like, dude, got it.
Can I say it was a little bit of like meatballish guilty pleasure for me. I feel like every now and then when like the Bears offensive line struggles as they did through the first few weeks, that you'll always, hear either on sports talk radio or like just guys, on social media or in whatever scenario, talk about like, okay, do they not have backups that can actually come in and do a better job? Well, we saw Doug Kramer come in and like actually look pretty damn good as the offensive lineman. Well, granted against the Panthers, but
that was Bill Murray.
Bill Murray too. Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And then he came in and he was actually good.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they didn't play Nate Davis speaks volumes, right?
Yeah. And they just played giant Matt Pryor at guard.
Yeah.
Like a tackle, but they're like, fuck it. At least they'll block somebody. You play guard. And it's amazing.
Richard?
Huh? Yeah, Richard.
Yeah. Richard.
And Mark.
He's also set himself on fire while freebasing. And you've noticed that once Pryor moved into guard, all of a sudden Darnell Wright, not a problem anymore. I think a lot of his problem was also playing right tackle and like looking at the right guard, like, okay, now I'm going to have to try to like chip his guy first and then go block my guy because he's not going to block that guy. And Darnell did not play well early in the year, and he's been fine ever since. When you don't hear about him, he's playing well.
Well, it's funny you say that. Like, you saw that picture right on that 4th down shitty option play against Indianapolis. You saw that picture of all the linemen on the ground. The reason why Darnell Wright was on the ground is because he literally blocked 2 guys.
Yeah.
He like blocked one guy and then took another guy out and ended up on the ground where everybody else just fell down. Like Darnell Wright is a really good ball player.
That was like a high. Well, I mean, it was an option, but they had that set up to block like in high school play. Everybody was supposed to reach block one guy to their left, and the center and the from the right guard, the center, all the way over. Guard. They all missed.
Yeah.
The Colts did not get blocked. They just came back, and Caleb has ball, so he has to pitch it immediately. And Swift is like, I don't know. Swift ran around for like 30 seconds.
What am I supposed to do with this?
Like, it's fourth down. I'll just keep running. Maybe
it's fourth down, right?
I also think they've made a big improvement in the way in the plays they're calling for him, for DeAndre.
Oh, God, yeah.
You can't run him. He's not an every down. Just give it to him, run him between the guard and the tackle over and over again. And it was funny. Who were the announcers were Jonathan Vilma and
whoever it was.
Somebody.
Kenny Albert.
Kenny Albert.
Oh, okay.
Calling hockey, been doing football.
Right.
Vilma's like, he's like, well, every time Roshan Johnson is in, it's going to be a run. It's like, no, he's actually in because he's their pass blocker.
He's so good too.
Right.
Like, you can't just like Jonathan. No, that's not right. Yeah. Well, go ahead, play it like it's a run because 70% of the time it's going to be a pass.
Yep.
Because Roshan is in there because they know he'll keep somebody off of Caleb.
Yep.
That's why he's in the game.
That screen pass to DeAndre Swift was beautiful.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
The Kent to Colby reference, and it was like they made a Kent to Colby reference. Kenny Albert made a Kent to Colby reference for the sidearm under.
It's
like, it's like, hey Kenny, we got to modernize these references a little bit,
right?
Could you at least have gotten to Dan Quisenberry? Yeah, I was going to think you could at least get to Dan Quisenberry. At least the 80s.
Couldn't have gotten a Shingo Takatsu in there.
To Colby.
Who's the guy? Chad Bradford? Was that the guy?
Right. Guy who actually would occasionally his knuckles would be bleeding from scraping on the ground.
God, I love Colby so much with that like hilltop.
Well, that was the screen pass I was talking about. Was the one where he went down and like.
Oh. No, but the one that was. I mean, I think that would. Is it 2 weeks in a row where Swift broke a screen pass? Yeah, like that works. Fuck these wide receiver and tight end screens. The
wide receiver screens don't work, and it was so nice. The last 2 weeks, they're actually allowing DJ to run like actual pass patterns, like down the field, instead of just run 2 yards and stop and be completely still. That was the thing about the offense early in the season. Was so much of it was. Guys were at a dead stop when they got the ball. When they would run all these draws out of the shotgun, and Swift would get it, and his feet aren't moving, and now he's got to get started. They'd run these stupid wide receiver screens where DJ, it's hilarious to watch defensive backs try to tackle DJ Moore. Yeah, but they can if he's completely stationary when he starts with the ball.
And I think part of it was to try to get not to.
I think they were trying to make easy throws for Caleb.
Yeah, exactly.
Get him a few, but they don't block those very well, so it ends up being a waste of a down, even if he complete it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even like the curl routes, the 5-yard curl routes and stuff like that. Like you could see how that would at least attempt to get Caleb in a rhythm before going deep. I get it. I agree. It's kind of dumb, and Caleb is obviously beyond that now, and they're calling plays that are better than that now. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they run. So like Jaden Daniels is lighting it up. Like he's the most ridiculous stat is that he's led more touchdown drives than he's thrown in completions on the season.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But there is I don't want to be, he's a really good player and he's
a good player. He's fine. Whatever.
But that, this version of that ridiculous offense, why can't I think of the old Cardinals coach with the
Kingsbury.
fancy
Cliff
Kingsbury. I mean, they're running a one-read offense right now.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what the Steelers are running with Justin.
Yeah.
And then the problem is Warren Sharp has a really good video about they're running a one-read offense. So basically, if you don't know what that is, Justin is basically given on the play call. There's a primary receiver. He's supposed to throw it to that guy unless he's completely covered, and if he's not, then he has a check down and he throws to. Or if you just run because you can't. And they're talking about how George Pickens is making life miserable for Justin because he's pissed he doesn't get the ball enough, so he's not running. So sometimes when he's the one read, he's like just jogging off the line, and Justin's screwed because he looks and that guy's not open, and now it's screwed. The Commanders are running a similar thing, except they're doing it with like Terry McLaurin and some other guys, and they're hitting. Jaden some of his deep throws are amazing. But at some point, like you can only run that for so long, and defenses take that away, and you've got to have something else. The approach the Bears have taken with Caleb is he's running the whole offense.
Yeah.
So when you take something away, Caleb already knows what to do when that's gone.
Well, the other thing is he's running it from the line of scrimmage based on what the defense is given him. It's not even that he's checking down or anything. He knows, like he seems to know. I don't know shit about football, but he seems to know that the defense is going to give him that. Like they were talking about, and I didn't see it because I'm a football novice, but they were talking about that play, the touchdown to DJ Moore. The reason why he threw that, like originally he was supposed to go somewhere else with the ball, but he looked the safety off, and then he knew, like he just knows that ahead of time.
DJ. So basically,
like
I think on that play there was a single high safety. Just there's one safety in the middle of the field, and once they see that. And DJ knows he's running a post. DJ knows that if two things happen, it's a touchdown. If he can get inside the defensive back, and if Caleb can hold the safety, keep him out of the middle of the field, it's going to be a touchdown. And DJ says, he goes, I'm running, and as soon as I get my step, I'm like, this is going to be a touchdown.
Yeah.
And he looks up, and there's the ball, and he catches it.
Yep.
And it's like, how many times have the Bears had a play like that where the ball has been in the stands, or the ball has been thrown to the tight end ended up with it instead, or it gets one of the Honey Bears used to catch it. Yeah, it's a
could have been a thing in my lifetime.
It's a different. Well, once Vag dies, then it'll be back.
Right.
You can't tell me that Kevin Warren won't bring the Honey Bears back.
The defense has now gone 11 consecutive games without giving up more than 21 points.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that'll win you a lot of games.
They've won 8 in a row at Soldiers Field.
At Soldiers.
And now this Sunday is a home game.
What now?
It's not at Soldier Field, so we'll see.
I don't know. They're going to win, so it won't matter. But if they lose, there's an asterisk by it.
What's the streak they're on, too, with their defense of, like, not allowing 21 points for 11 straight games going back to last season?
Yep. So we're going to... Praz had a stroke and missed the last 45 seconds of the podcast. Oleg just gave that same stat.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
It was hilarious.
We've all done it. I do it 8 times a podcast.
Sorry, a little distracted by Fernando Tatis.
I was going to say, are you busy watching Walker Buehler throw home run derby batting practice?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That was fun.
Sorry, we can cut that. And
Clayton Kershaw's in the dugout going, "Shit, I did this. I didn't bother to get anybody out when I did this last year."
Yeah. The best pitcher on the Dodgers right now might be Mark Pryor.
He should try it. He's got to be rested, right?
Right.
Shoulder capsule or whatever is probably healed. Let's go.
Yep. That's right. Well, I mean, Yamamoto's fine. I know he gave up 5 runs in 4.
He's no Shota.
Jed
knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
he got the right one.
But I mean, the defense is like that. I mean, Dexter he's so good.
Yeah,
like that guy's just getting better and better, and I'm so psyched about it.
It's a unit without there are no weaknesses on that Bears defense. Like their linebackers are really good. They have a great defensive end. They have their secondary might be the best in the NFL. We got Sweat on one, and then you've got Jervon and our buddy Billingsley. You got Andrew Billingsley.
Yeah. Oh my God!
I don't know why. I don't know why they just cut his name off short. It's disrespectful.
Yeah, it is. It is. But he's just this that's the Ted Washington in the middle.
Who was the guy that ran back that interception against the Jaguars in the early 2000s? Keith Traylor. Yep.
Yeah, that was quite a pair.
Yeah.
It was about 700 and some pounds of defensive tackle.
Who's the I keep forgetting the guy's name who they got from Seattle. What was it? Seattle?
Darryl Taylor.
Yeah, Darryl Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been a beast.
He's good. The other guy, Williams, is all right in the middle.
They got him from this rotation. I was surprised. Chris Williams has always been a pretty good player. I don't know. Cleveland has a good defense. Yeah. They may have just had, they wanted to get, all right, fine. We got too many tackles and we can get something for Chris, so we'll trade him to the Bears. But he's a pretty nice player.
Yeah, they have depth. And it's a rotation. They just wear out that offensive line. Man,
and, for all of for whatever failings he might have, the Flus is a hell of a defensive coordinator.
He's so good at it.
He's really
He's
good.
good at it. And that's my point about him is I don't know whether you want to consider, I mean, he's obviously the head coach, but what he brings, like, did we talk about this? We may have talked about this on the preview show, on the preview podcast. When he's able to tell Caleb what the defense is doing, like, I think that is so huge.
Yeah, I forget who was talking about, everybody wants to have an offensive guru as their head coach. And if you get the right one, like Andy Reid,
sure,
you have the best of both worlds, right?
Sure.
But there is a real value if your defensive-minded head coach gets out of the way from the offense.
Yes.
Like lets the offense, you have to have a competent offensive coordinator, but he lets him run it. He isn't meddling, I mean, Ditka was an offensive coach, who'd been a special teams coach, who would literally rip the play sheet away from Ed Hughes and start calling plays. But also will then use his expertise to help the offense, which is exactly what you're talking about with Eberflus. Basically, you've got a guy who knows what that defense is doing. Like he knows it. Flus knows it within 4 seconds of looking at a defense. He can tell you what they're doing and what the plan is for the day. And if that's the role he'll take, then it's valuable. And it seems like that's what he wants to do. And also he is he's savvier. He looks, I mean, even with the beard in there, he looks confused a lot. But I don't think he is. It's just his look, his perpetual face.
Rusty confused face.
Yeah. He is pretty analytically driven when it comes to when they go for it. Mm-hmm. Apparently, one of the things he's really good about is the offensive coordinator knows immediately on a third down whether he's going to get to go for it on fourth or not. So that some coaches are a step behind, and the coordinator's like, "Well, shit! If I didn't know we were going to call, I wouldn't have called this on third down if I knew you wanted to go for it on fourth down." It's little stuff, but that's these. And the NFL is designed for one possession. They would love every game to be a one possession game at the end. So the margins are really important because most of your games are going to come down. They had all for the Bears until Sunday.
Right.
It is important. And, he's, I've always been more generous to the Flus than some others. I think he's fine. I think
he's fine.
Say it, Oleg. Say it, Oleg.
He's going to be
perfectly fine.
He's perfectly fine. No, but he's like he's going to win coach.
I'm going to trade him and Nico Hoerner together.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like the head coaches, if the ones who don't tend to make those decisions ahead of time are the ones who have less hair on their head. That's what I feel like. Like the more hair you have in your head, the better you are making those decisions.
Well, that's why David Ross hasn't gotten a job yet.
Yeah. Or Matt Navy.
Back as a coordinator, but
whatever. You know what I'm saying, damn it.
I'm trying to think of the coaches with the most wins. Belichick's got most of his hair.
Yeah.
Don Shula, good head of hair. Don Shula.
Yeah.
Papa Bear always had a hat. I don't think Papa Bear had a lot of hair. Right? But he had hair. He was bald.
It was a different time back then, Andy.
That's true.
Tom Landry.
There might be something to that.
I think Bud Grant had a pretty good head of hair to his dying day. Yeah.
Who'd you say?
Bud Grant.
Bud Grant.
Oh, Bud Grant. No, wait.
Bum Phillips didn't. Bum was bald. That's why he had some issues.
Yeah.
Abe Gibran, bald.
Yep.
Jack Party, pretty bald.
I think we're on to something.
Ditka, majestic mane of hair.
Yeah. Buddy Ryan was kind of bald, right? But
he's busy punching people.
Yeah.
Maybe it might just be like if you have bad hair, that could also factor into it too. Because look at Mark Trestman's situation up there.
Don Capers.
Or Don Capers,
the Lou Heston.
Well, to your point, when Eberflus had bad hair, he wasn't as good as he is with good hair.
Yeah, you tighten it up and you can't stop him.
Now.
There we go.
All right.
So this is when they beat this is the latest in any season he's been over 500.
Who, Eberflus?
Yeah, because
they were 2-1 a couple years ago when they beat the Texans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess. What were they 0-4 last year, and then
that produced the great Greg Gabriel tweet of I don't see this team losing one of its next or only winning one of its next however many games were left.
And that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
Attaboy, Greg. I haven't heard from. Maybe I probably haven't blocked. Has he been around? He's been shooting off his mouth and
I haven't noticed.
Yeah.
I don't notice Greg Gabriel. I try not to.
I don't either. All right,
man. But yeah, the Bears are.
Well, don't forget, set your alarm clock. 8:30 kickoff.
Jeez.
Hey, Praz, if you want to come down to the city, let's go have some Bloody Marys for the game.
I may take you up on that.
Andy, if you want to come down to the city.
Sure. I get up at 4 and come down. It'd be great. I can't. Early games, I'm all for. You can't start these things early enough.
That's what I'm saying.
For sure.
Dude, I
would do an 8:30 game.
I'm on your Formula One schedule. I love it. Like, it's the greatest thing ever because my dog gets me up early anyway. I get to take a walk with the dog. I come home, and I'm taking a nap by 10:30.
Yep.
I'm the opposite. I'm on an NFL Sunday. I'm usually asleep till about like 10, maybe 11.
Yeah,
but I'll get up early for this one.
Yeah, but anyway, come have a Bloody Mary. We'll go to Cody's. Bring your dogs.
I think we're clearly heading within the next 3 or 4 years to there will be a European package of games where the 8:30 Sunday will just be a given. That window will always
like be a game there every
17 weeks. Or you think they're just going to do
Except maybe not at the very end. Maybe the last week they won't do it.
Yeah,
and that may be where they expand to too. If they
how about the Jags?
Go that direction.
They have back-to-back games, and I mean they're London's team, the Jaguars.
Yeah, they pretty much are, right?
They're staying.
What soccer team does he own? Does he own Liverpool or no?
Who's Shad Khan?
Yeah. Does he own one of the Premier League teams?
I don't think he does. I think they just have
He owns like WrestleMania, right?
AEW or whatever.
Or AEW, yeah.
I think just because they're shitty
Fulham
attendance
FC
when they he does own Fulham.
Yep.
Well, they're not playing at Fulham. They play at Spurs. Fucking Spurs. That's all right. They never beat Arsenal there anyway, so what does it matter? But yeah, so I'm excited. 8:30. I'm all for it.
I'm psyched.
They want to play all the games at 8:30. That'd be fine.
Yeah,
I'm very happy too that a winless Jags team isn't coming into this game winless too.
Yeah.
That like they finally, even though it was like a total nail biter for them, crazy game with the Colts, but they're not looking for their first win. So
I'm also excited that a winless Jag team isn't coming in winless.
Well, previously winless.
There you go. Right. I just sounded a little weird to me. A winless team that's not winless.
All right, we'll get up, have your tea and crumpets or whatever, and watch the Bears. It's gonna be exciting.
I honestly think that my plan is going to be this. I'm going to go and get a breakfast burrito somewhere, and then I'm going to go and have a Bloody Mary and watch the game.
There we go. Sounds like a plan.
So come on down. Let's do it. I'll even buy you a breakfast burrito, Press.
Look at that.
We'll record a podcast without Andy.
Yeah.
Perfect.
See if I air that thing.
Hey, you have aired things on this podcast that I have sent to you independently before, so we'll have to make that content. Just play it right at the end after the Sean Dunston drop.
Oh yeah. That you know what? I got to be honest. I think that's so cool. That's such a cool thing.
The Sean Dunston one?
Yeah,
it's great.
Like I actually like listening to it. It's kind of fun to listen to.
When I edit the podcast together, I don't have to listen to those things at the end because I know they're there. I always listen to all of them.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
And you should too, listener. You should listen, especially if there happen to be ads right before them. You should listen to those and then stick around for the end. That's what you should do.
Yes.
I do think that at some point we got to start talking about how many Pro Bowlers this Bears team have.
Want to be easier to just talk about the guys who aren't going to make the Pro Bowl?
I don't know.
Would it be quicker?
Yeah, maybe.
Exactly.
I mean, 53 players. I'm guessing there'll be at least 30 Pro Bowlers.
They should do they'll play, instead of like the USA versus the world, you guys play the league against the Bears. I know the Bears they'll be getting ready for the Super Bowl, but they'll need a tune-up. And it's flag football anyway.
Is that right? Is that what they're down to now?
Yeah, they play flag football. You get one of the Mannings, the coach.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
Eli's 2-0 against Peyton. It pisses Peyton off so much that I love it.
Nice.
All right.
That's beautiful.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks, you, Andy.
Many of us have herpes.
No, I thought it generally sucked.
didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. Got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.